Hello, okay, let's try and make this Hope poster like Barack Obama. Let's do this quickly. Okay, if all you want is the shader node itself, I will show it here. So get a quick look at it, and otherwise, let's just delete everything and do it from scratch. So this is a free policewoman model I got from Turbo Squid. I will link it in the descriptions below if you want to try it out with that as well. And when we're doing this, let's think through the process. So I'll explain as I go along. First and foremost, we need color. So as you can see, this is just white. So with today's sort of workflow, we're going to be using the Node Wrangler a lot. So if you don't have it installed yet, go to Edit Preferences, Add-ons, and look for Node Wrangler and check that. It's built into Blender by default, and it is very useful, so I'd suggest you have it on all the time. Okay, great. So moving on, we currently have a white model. We don't want that. We want the color that is similar to what you see in the poster here. So let's try and put in a color ramp. If you try doing that, you'll see you get a red line here because you can't put in a color shader like the diffuse one straight into the color ramp. What you really need is you want to split the shader into its individual colors. So you've got shader to RGB. And now if you try to connect it, that works. You'll actually see the colors show up here. It's probably goes without saying, but you don't really want your shader to look white in color. You want these colors. So the easy way to do that is, we know we're going to need about, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 different colors based on this poster. So in your color ramp, we'll add 2 more colors. And let's look at it. So if you look here, you can see we've got 4 colors going from the darkest to the lightest, and we will try and follow that here as well. So for the black, select the color, press a little color bar here, use the eyedropper tool, select that, and we'll go one by one. Select the colors in order as we see in the poster. Can we do this? Why, yes, we most certainly will be able to. Okay, as you can see here, the color, you might look at it and think, hey, it's the wrong way around. You could invert it here. But the other way we can do it is just by moving the light. If you've just turned on Blender, this is probably going to be set to spotlight, I believe, or point light or something. So change it to the sun, change the brightness to whatever level you want. And instead of material preview, we'll be working under rendered with the EV here. And then just sort of try and position the sunlight in roughly the same way you think it is hitting the poster as well. So sort of coming from this direction. It doesn't look really nice now because everything is really diffuse. Whereas in the poster itself, you got very hard edges. So we'll fix that. Instead of linear in your color ramp, select that and go constant. And hey, it's looking a bit better now if you look here. Not so much here. So we're just going to play around with the dials a bit. And the smaller the sort of tab is here, the less representation it gets in the overall model. So let's try and make that look a bit more like it does in the poster. I think it's quite clear that we need more of the yellow, so we'll bring the yellow in. Maybe something like that. Don't mind the shading, it's just weirding out a bit because of the policewoman's cap. Let's try and maybe shift that sunlight a bit so it looks a bit nicer. How about this way? Yeah, that's a bit better. Okay, so we've got the shader most of the way there. You can still play around with this based on how much you want each of the colors to be shown over in the final product. And there's a way we can fix it in post later. And this sort of gets you most of the way, but it is quite obvious that you're missing a few other things. And the main thing is going to be, if you look at the, woohoo, if you look at the poster here, you'll see these little blue and, blue and yellow lines. And let's try and make that instead so that we can actually add it to our model as well. So we'll move this down in the shader editor. Shift A, we want a wave texture. Select your wave texture, and remember, if you've got Node Wrangler on, you can Control Shift left click any sort of shader, and it immediately represents it in the model itself. So this is what the wave texture looks like by default. Really what we want is for the lines to be a bit sharper, and you can probably guess you're going to need a color ramp set to constant for that. And we also want the lines rotated so it's horizontal instead of vertical. Select your wave texture, press Ctrl T. Again, note Wrangler, very useful. It immediately sets this in. And you want to change the rotation of the y-axis 90 degrees, and there you go. So this is already rotated the right way. That's similar to this. We mentioned needing a color ramp, so choose your color ramp here. And actually, no, you know what? We'll just add a new one. So Shift A, add a color ramp, put it here, change it to constant. So similarly, as you move this, it changes the width of the lines. If you look at the poster though, you can probably see that the width of the blue and yellow lines are equivalent. So we'll put this at a 0.5. So the white and the black is equivalent. And to change that, we can just move the scale. So moving the scale up and down changes the actual width of the line. And rather than having it black and white, we want it to be the same as the blue and yellow we chose here. You can drag and drop colors. So select the blue, drag it, drop it here, move to the white, change this to yellow, drag it, drop it here. There you go. You've got these two already. Okay, so close, all the way, almost all the way there. Now what we want to do is we want to mix these two colors in. So if you hold Control Shift, right click, and you drag this across the two tabs, you will get this mix shader. Oh, you know what? I should probably turn screencast keys on. Hopefully it's not been too bad. If you don't know how this sort of mix works, so you've got two colors. You've got one in the top, which is color 1, and then color 2, and you've got a factor. If the factor is all the way at 0, you are purely using whatever is on the top slot here. So your wavy lines. When it's all the way at 1, you're using whatever is in the bottom, color 2, so which is the base colors that we've selected. And 0.5 is, halfway with both. It's not exactly what we want. What we want is for these blue and yellow lines to only be a portion of the sort of the blue shade over here. So really what we want to tell Blender is, I want you to use part of this and part of this. And we can do that by creating a mask. A mask is usually black and white. So an easy way to do this is to use this color ramp. Press Shift D to duplicate it and bring it up here. Let's move this away. And let's think about how this is going to work. Ooh, all right, someone's angry. Let's think about how this is going to work. Okay, so if we Control Shift this, it's just going to look yellow in color. You might be wondering why. So similar to this color ramp, we still need to feed it a color and a shader to RGB. So we can just share in on this one. Let's drag it from color here to the factor here. And look, there you have it. You can press Shift right click to create a combined node for this. Shift right click to make a new one here. If this is just more for cleanup, Shift right click, make a new node here, press G, move it. So it looks a bit neater. And okay, so remember, the top color is black, the bottom color is white. And so what we're trying to do is, for the blue areas here, that's where we want the wave. So we want the blue part to be black, everything else to be white. So let's do that. Make this white. Make this white. And duplicating the color ramp from what you've already used ensures that everything is already in the right place when you create your mask. So this is what your mask looks like. And so remember, black means color 1, white is color 2. So if we join this into the factor here, at first you're going to see, so any part that is blue, which is now black over in the mask, is going to be using the wave texture, whereas everything else that's white will be using this texture. But what we really want is, if you look at this shader, is part of the blue is the wavy texture, part of it is solid. So all we need to do that is to change the size of the black ramp over here. And if we move this in, you can see it does just that. And that is honestly pretty much it. So you've created the texture, and if you sort of rotate your model around, it will just automatically refresh and always give you that sort of hope poster look. But here's sort of like, let's improve things a bit more by making things, how should we say, scalable. We want to be able to sort of change things whenever we need to. And one of the ways we can do that, so remembering that everything just comes down to color value, it's all about whether things are black or white. It means that if we press Shift A and add a, not brick, brightness? Where are you, brightness? There you go. Brightness and contrast node. If I shift the brightness here, it changes the levels on the model as well. That's great. And remember, we can change the scale here to sort of change the scale of the width of the lines of the texture itself. And all this can look a bit confusing, and you might not want to look at it every single time, especially if you're trying to import it to other models. So what we can do is select everything, press Ctrl G to make it into a group. When you do that, you'll get this new group input shader over here. So if we take the brightness and we connect it here, we take the scale, we connect it here, we can now change it. So we can say brightness, instead of calling it brightness, it is, I don't know, coloriness. And scale would be line width. Great. So press N to close that. And if you press Tab, you'll go out of that menu. So all we have now is a single node connecting to the output. And we can change that to Hope Shader. So now when you change the coloriness levels, you change the brightness level in that group, and you sort of change the factors of everything inside. You can change the line width just using this. And that's about it. So you've created your Hope Shader. You can bring it to any of the models that you have. Let me know if this was useful. Thanks.